Hello, my name is Scott Dennis Parker, and I'm an author. And I'd like to talk to you today about my very first published book called Wading into War. Now, you might wonder why now? Why should we talk about wading into war now? It turns out that today, April 22nd, 2020, is the 80th anniversary of the events of the book, and I thought, what better time to share read along than today on the 80th anniversary. But first, I'd like to do a little bit of background. If you have read the introduction to my book, or if you've watched the other video in there, you'll see how wading into war plays into my writing career. If you haven't, here's the short story. Back in 2006, a friend of mine named Doug, he began to write his own first novel, and he asked me to read some chapters of his book, and I said yes, I would, as long as he would read some of chapters in mine. And from 2005 into 2006, we wrote a chapter a week, and we got our first book written. Well, cut to 7 years after that completed book, and by New Year's Day of 2013, I hadn't written my second book at all. I had to start and a stop and a start and stop, and it just didn't work. And I don't know why. But come New Year's Day, 2013, I resolved that I was going to write and complete a story. I had an image in my head. The image was of a man. He was dressed in a suit, and he's wearing a fedora. So immediately I began to think, private eye. If he's wearing a fedora, chances are he's in the past. Now, he's standing on a porch, and he's knocking on a door. Now, this house was one of those little bungalow houses that you see around Houston, my hometown, built in the 1930s and 1940s. So immediately I had a fedora-wearing guy who was probably a private eye knocking on the door to a house probably in the 40s or 30s. So I said, let's just make it 1940. It's right before the beginning of World War II had started in September of 39, but there was a thing called the Phony War, which nothing really happened between late 39 and into early May of 1940. And I thought it would be an interesting time to set a story there because we weren't yet at war. Of course, the United States wouldn't be at war until December of 41. But I liked the idea. I also had just recently finished watching a few seasons of the show called Foyle's War, which that also took place in 1940, and it was small town home front Britain during the early months of May 1940, and it went beyond that. So I said, you know what? I'm going to make a Houston version of that. I'm a native Houstonian. I love my city, and I figured why not set things here. So I had an image of a guy wearing a fedora in a suit knocking on the door of a bungalow house in 1940. And instead of someone answering the door, bullets burst through the door, and my character, who I didn't have a name for, he had to react and get out of the way. That was the image that started me on the process of writing the book that became Wading into War. Now, I later on named the guy Benjamin Wade. He's a private investigator. And how I came up with the name, at the time, this would be 2013, my wife and I, we were watching and enjoying river monsters with a fisherman whose name was Jeremy Wade. I liked the way it flowed, a three-syllable to a one-syllable word, Jeremy. So I said, I liked Wade. It's like, what can I go with Wade? Well, we can have Benjamin. So I ended up with Benjamin because you can shorten Benjamin down to Ben. So certain characters will call Benjamin Ben, and some people will call Ben other things too. So anyway, I had my character, and I had my scene, I had my opening. So I figured, let's just go. Well, it took me most of the month of May of 2013, but I got it finished. And by the time I got it finished, it was about 18,000 words or so. I didn't know what to do with it. It's too long for Alfred Hitchcock Mystery Magazine. It's too long for Ellery Queen Mystery Magazine. It's too short for any traditionally published book that you see in Barnes & Noble or Borders at that time. So it's like, what do you do with this? What does he do with an 18,000 word story? Well, throughout my blogging career, I had made some friends with professional writers who had been and still are writing throughout the years, and one of them, his name is James Reesner. He is prolific beyond belief. This is 2020, so I believe he has published at least 365 novels under his own name or a bunch of pen names or house names. And so you can literally read a book a day with James Reesner's book, which is incredible. I can't even imagine. He's been doing this for 40 years plus. Well, I had emailed him and I said, James, could you do a couple things for me? Could you read this thing that I've written? I don't even know if it's good. I mean, you could just tell me it's trash. It's okay. And if you don't think it's bad, what do I do with this thing? It's 18,000 words. It's too long for magazines. It's too short for books. What do you do? Well, he read it. I thanked him profusely. He's read a few other things of mine too over the years, but he read it and he liked it. And he said the words that probably changed my writing career. He said, "I like the story. You should publish it yourself. And if you don't publish it yourself, give it to me, and through my own publication house called Rough Edges Press, I'll publish it for you." The light bulb dinged. Publish something myself. Now this is May of 2013 or June 2013. I had no idea how you do that kind of thing. At the time I did not have a Kindle. I've got a few e-readers now, but at the time I didn't have one. How do you even go about publishing something yourself? Well, I did a crash course, and between 2013 and February of 2015, I learned all that I could about how to write and publish and format and do everything that you need to do to get a book ready for publication. And February 18th of 2015 is the day that Wading into War was officially published. And that is the story I'd like to share with you starting today and moving forward. But let's talk about the cover first. But if you don't mind, I'm going to take a quick sip of water. Everyone judges a book by its cover. The mantra is, don't judge a book by a cover, but we all judge a book by its cover. And that meant I needed to have a cool cover. Now, in my wildest fantasies, what I would love to have had was a illustrated, painted cover like you saw on all those gold medal books from the 50s and the 40s and the 60s. That's what I wanted. Lucky for me, in my day job, I'm a marketing writer / technical writer, and I knew a lot of graphic designers. I had a friend of mine, his name is Ike, and he was willing to work with me and get me an image, get me what I drew for him for my cover. And what was great about Ike is that he drew exactly what I asked for, and what I asked for was this. Now, as you can see right here, we've got the title. Now, if you can't recognize that, this would be an Art Deco font. Love the Art Deco style. I love the Art Deco font. And I'm like, it's a 1940s book, so why not why not make the cover read like an Art Deco book? Right up here was back in the Gold Key days, and more recently with Hardcase Crime, they always had their logo there on the front cover. So I was frankly trying to mirror what gold medal books had back in the day and what Hardcase Crime has nowadays. And I said, I'm going to make myself a little logo of my company, which at the time was called Quadrant Fiction Studio. So I wanted that on the cover. Nice big title. I had the name of my character. I had decided to do all three names, not just Scott Parker, not Scott D. Parker, but I decided to go with Scott Dennis Parker. My first favorite author was Alan Dean Foster. You've got Edgar Rice Burroughs. You got a lot of authors out there who use all three of their names, so I figured, why not? And as you can see right here, what Ike did for me was he actually created the cover that I saw in my head, the image. So this would be my main character, Ben Wade. This is the door, and as you can see how cool this shot is here. Right here. The gunshot's coming right through the door, and if you look on the inside right here, you've got a mystery man shooting at our hero with a dead body inside. How cool was that? It was exactly what I wanted to. What's interesting though is over the years, my cover's changed. I went from this size. This is actually, it's hard to tell, but this is a big size because when I did a second version, I made it into a traditional trade paperback size, which this size resembles everything. In fact, like right here behind here is this Agatha Christie story I'm reading. This is your traditional trade paperback size book. So I did like that. But over time, I decided to change things up. I didn't want this cover anymore. I wanted something a little more cohesive to the entire series of books. So I ended up coming up with this. Now I don't have any paper copies of this right here, but this is my, this is the current copy of Wading into War. Let me move it so you can see it better right there. Okay, so this is the current copy of Wading into War. So everything that involves this series all has a common look and feel. We've got the title, we've got the series hero, and then of course my name. And then we have on top and bottom 2 separate pictures that relate to the story. And of course now I have a tagline, which let's see if I can get that closer. It says, "A missing man, a bloody corpse, a beautiful client, and Nazis." So if you order a paperback version, this is the cover you'll get. If you order an ebook version of it in 2020, this is also what you'll get. So this is the current cover. I very much like what I used to have. I tend to like this one a little bit better only because it's more cohesive for the entire series. So that is the introduction to Wading into War. And what I'd like to do now is start reading. Now the chapters are short, so what I'll probably do is read about 5 chapters today, and you can come back tomorrow, and then you can read, you can listen to the next few chapters. I'll be reading from a book, so let's not, I might stumble over words, but that's just okay. But anyway, thanks for listening to this introduction, and I'll catch you on chapter 1.